Welcome to Conscious Living Collective, transformative journey in consciousness with community of like-minded people, which is you. My name is Tomek. I'm a scientist, teacher, and transformation coach. In this live session, we blend the latest in scientific research, the deep wisdom of mindfulness, and the art of fulfilled living. My intention for this session is to invite you to have your own first-hand direct experience and emerge on the other side changed or transformed with a renewed sense of purpose and well-being. Welcome to another session of Conscious Living Collective. I'm very happy to be with all of you here. And as always, I want to acknowledge your presence, which is absolutely essential to our gathering. Otherwise, it would be collective, would be just me. Insignificant speck on the suit of the universe. So, right here, right now, who do I see? I want to start with, as always, with my wonderful, supportive, holding the space members of Patreon program. Hello, Parvane. Hello, Austin. Hello, Diane. Hello, Carmela. Hello, Mary. So many of you have been coming to this space and supporting me in so many different ways. I'm very happy to see you here. Thank you for your support. Hello, Anne. And I'm just looking at the icons floating under my screen. Also, I want to welcome all the regulars. Hello, Anne. Hello, Gwendolyn, Karen. Who else I can see here? No sound, still no audio. Oh, that is very interesting. Okay. Huh. What about now? Can you tell me if you can hear me now? Oh, wow. Okay. So this is going to be very, very difficult. Okay. Testing mode. Insight timer changed something. What about now? What about now? Changing once again. Can you hear me now when I speak? Yes? 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 Okay. 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 And now I want to ask you if you can hear the music. Can you hear the music? Is it loud and clear? Okay. Beautiful. All right. Excellent. Very faint. It meant to be. It's a background. Yes. So I understand it's just a background. But I want to make sure that is clear or it doesn't sound canny together with my voice. Because Insight Timer apparently added some added noise reduction that it doesn't go very well with the music. Yeah, the music meant to be faint. Okay, on my part, the internet is good. All right. Okay, I'm gonna turn down the music. I'll turn it off altogether. So, okay, I'm going to start again and welcome you to Conscious Living Collective, transformative journey in consciousness with community of like-minded people, which is you. My name is Tomek. I'm a scientist, I'm a teacher, and transformation coach. In this live session, we blend the latest in scientific research, the deep wisdom of mindfulness, and the art of fulfilled living. As always, this is an invitation to you to have your own first-hand direct experience and emerge on the other side with a renewed sense of purpose and well-being. And it wouldn't be Conscious Living Collective if I didn't acknowledge your presence. And I'm going to start with my wonderful patrons that are here. Since you didn't hear me, I just by the names. Hello, Diane. Hello, Austin. Hello, Anne. Hello, Mary. Hello, Carmela. Did I miss anyone? Ah, of course. Hello, Parvane. Beautiful. And also, I want to welcome all the regular listeners of Conscious Living Collective. So, hello, Karen. Hello, Joanne. Hello, Andrea. Hello, Anita, Gwendolyn. Thank you so much for helping me figuring out the technical problems. Every time something happens, something changes on the platform, teachers have to, Mary. Yes, Mary's here. Anne. Now I sounds good. Both voice and music. Hello, Hanya. I really apologize for being discombobulated because when there are technical issues on the platform, when Insight Timer introduces something new, it always throws me off a bit because as always, you know that I pay a lot of attention to the quality of this transmission. I want to always make sure that you can hear me loud and clear, that we have a supportive background music. Thanks to Peter Halland, our Insight Timer musician that created this fantastic track that supports us today. And when that is established, I can simply focus on the connection. And the reason I pay so much attention to the quality of the connection, because as it happens, this is how we connect. Over the internet, something that was not possible in the past. But now I can connect with all of you from around the world. And of course, I want to make sure that literally and metaphorically, the quality of the connection that I create with you is as good as possible. This is ultimately the one thing that we are here about in Conscious Living Collective. And I want to start off with by bringing you back, and all of you, and I know some of you attended my last session on You Are Always Enough. That was session on self-worth that is very important in today's session, that we will be connecting the dots and we will be discussing how to find your true north. And right here at the start, I want to explain the metaphor I used in the title. What does it mean to find your true north? And true north is something that you might be familiar with as a point somewhere in Antarctica that is a geographical point of our planet that is unchangeable and always there, always at the same place, as opposed to magnetic north that is more or less in the same direction, but it depends on the external circumstances, depends on magnetic field changes and varies, depends on where you are, depends on where you're looking at, and that compass, the needle of the compass that points out not to the true north, but to magnetic north. It's very important in today's session because in sessions of Conscious Living Collective, I always invite you to look for something that is steady and that's something that is truly you. And this is the explanation of the metaphor. The true north is the expression of who you are as opposed to magnetic north that changes. It changes with social norms, changes with fashion, changes with many different things. And it seems to me that magnetic north is very often something that we as humans, as a society, follow. Our mood, who we are very often related to not some steady internal thing, but it depends on many different things. And I want to unpack this metaphor and add a bit of science to what we're discussing here today. Hello, Sandra. Hello, Susie. Hello, Sue. And this is a very deep topic that I will like to cover to some extent. But when I was preparing to this topic, I've realized that we can only scratch the surface. And for those of you who are joining Conscious Living Collective for the first time, I want to assure you that we are not all about talk. We are by far the most important part of our session is the first-hand experience, as I try to explain in the introduction to our session. And we will meditate together. We collectively, we will try to get down into the bottom of the topic, even though intellectually, content-wise, I won't be able to cover it all because it's a very, very deep and interesting topic, and I'm very excited to present it to you. But I want to start this session and our exploration with asking you a question. Questions that relate to our metaphor of true north and magnetic north. When you follow the magnetic north, that's also slightly changing the needle of your compass, most of us will ask ourselves a question: what should I do with my life? Come here, we feel dissatisfied, something is not fully aligned, and we ask ourselves out of fear, what should I do with my life? But today, I will invite you to slightly change this question. And we will be asking, who am I when I strip everything I have been told to be? Who am I when I strip everything I have been told to be? This is the true north that we are interested in. As you know, in the session about the self-worth, I named it, You Are Always Enough. And that's obviously, some of us, you may say, no, I am not always enough. According to your personality, according to the conditioning, according to all the information that you absorbed throughout your life, that statement might not be true. But what I will try to convince you today, or at least consider, is that when you aligned with the inner needle of the needle of your inner compass, when you stripped all the information that we've been attacked with, all the social media noise, all the politics, geoeconomical situation that is thrown at us and try to convince us that we are not safe, what you will find that there is under that noise, there is a signal. And the work that we will do today is very much related to finding the signal or the true north under the noise that is such a dominant part of our daily living. Hello, Tosca. Good to see you here. So, I want to ask you, what are the rules? What are the principles? What are the values that right now you are following? Feel free to share in the comment section, or simply ask yourself in the quiet of your mind, what are the true values that you have? What is it that you are following? And what is the result on the level of the heartfelt sense or felt sense following the values that you subscribe to? And in this session, I'd like to use a bit of science, as I introduced at the beginning, because it sets a stage and gives us an intellectual way into understanding why this is important, why it is important to follow and find your true north, as opposed to be distracted by your personality, by the social norms and everything that happens. Why this is important. And I want to start with Erik Erikson, a researcher that tried to ask us a question. What is the difference between identity, which would reflect who we are, versus role? That ask us, what are our goals in our life? And this is a very important distinction to make right here at the start in order to understand what we are following. If we are wrapped up, putting on one hat or another, and we evaluate ourselves with respect to the goals and achievements that we have, we very often feel, we felt short of the expectation. And that these are the goals. But goals not always are aligned with our identity, which is who we are. And that continuous question that we ask ourselves, who am I? Not what is my role, but who am I underneath when I stripped all the layers of the conditioning, all the things that I hear in the news, all the things that are the headlines on the social media. Who am I? What is left when all this story disappears? And based on work of Erikson, there's another researcher, James Marcia, who help us to understand better the purpose as we understand it at the beginning. And he identifies kind of 4 stages in our life when we consider the question, who am I? And the question of the purpose and the finding our true north. And the first one is called foreclosure. And foreclosure is that very initial stage where we are committed to something without truly exploring it. You remember that when you were very, very young, and you were told what to do. You went to school and you had to have good grades. You have to behave in a certain way because someone told you to. And that was done without conviction. You never explored any of that purpose that was given to you. It was being thrown at you. And I can share my own story from my own life that I can only consider, and this is very important now because this knowledge I'm sharing with you, it's a result of my self-exploration. I did not know that back then. I was blindly following certain rules or principles and purpose that was thrown at me. And I went to my mom, decided to put me into one of the best schools in the city. And to share with you, I wasn't a best student. I come from a small village where education wasn't really the most important thing. I had an inclination I was curious, and I always had a good grade in a small local school. But when I went to the city, I was confronted with a very harsh reality. And the reality that many people there had much stronger purpose infused by the parents, infused by the upbringing. So I simply unconsciously or subconsciously started following what I saw. It was working for them. I saw the excitement. I saw that biochem profile of the class was something I wanted because I saw them. It's not that biochemistry was something I was interested in. It's because the people that went to that class were some way, somehow inspired me. And that's what James Marcia describes as a identity foreclosure. This is the time of our life when you just follow something, but you didn't fully explore why. I didn't know really why I want to study chemistry and biology. And eventually, at the end of that high school, that led me to pass exam to the med school. I want to become a doctor, which sounds a very misaligned with who I am right now from after all these years. It wasn't really something that I wanted. It wasn't truly my purpose. It wasn't something that I aligned with, but it was something that the collective presented to me as a very viable option. So there was purpose without exploration. And there is a time, so according to Marcia, this is very natural thing that we do. There's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. It's simply we do not know better. But there's a time in our life when we become more conscious living collective, and we start exploring different facets and ask questions. And Marcia talks about the stage of our development as identity moratorium. This is a very difficult part of our journey that we take upon to not only find our identity and our purpose, but also compare it or align it with who we are. And this happens through trial and error. I'm sure that many of you right here, right now, you tried many things in your life. And what you found that you experienced suffering and hurt and things didn't work. And it's that inner critic that we spoke during the last session of our Conscious Living Collective was very active, telling you, oh, this is not it, this is not it. But what I'm here to tell you, that was a very valuable time and valuable effort that you made in order to get to know yourself better. Because the identity moratorium, that stage of your life when you try to figure it out who you are underneath all the layers of conditioning, it's not an easy thing to do. And particularly in times like today, where there's so much information thrown at us. There are so many agendas in the air that are not interested in our health and well-being, but they are interested in getting our attention. So one may ask, okay, I don't have time to think about my true purpose when I have, bills to pay and work to do, and the to-do list longer than I know what to do with. But ultimately, the life will make a point sooner or later through maybe disease, maybe through breaking of a relationship, that you will have to look at that. Because ultimately, the biggest purpose of us being here incarnated into this very difficult earth school is to figure out what we are, figure out the true north, who we are underneath those layers. And this is ultimately the path that we're following here in Conscious Living Collective. And why it is easier to do it here together. Because as a social creatures, we want to know that following a path is something that I do not do alone. I'm not just a nut and just not cog in a system that is insignificant. We find places that is very important, part of the community, being part of the community, that's supporting us on that path of that exploration. And Marcia says, if we persist, if we go through that difficult time of finding your purpose, you eventually arrive there. And instead of following that magnetic north, or following the needle that is always deviates from one place to another, depends on what social media says, what is the current headline, what war is happening where, you start finding that underneath that, there's something that you are. that is disidentified from all the roles that you've taken upon yourself and everything that you did and achieved throughout your life, all the goals that seem so important. And this is the main purpose of our session today, to attempt to go underneath the story and arrive at something that is more steady, that feels more you. And this is another thing that comes out of research. It's not about a thought. It's about a felt sense. That's what we're seeking for. That's what the true north can be found. Not in a thought or intellectual understanding, but in the heartfelt sense. It is sensed on the level of the body. That's why our previous session, when I introduced you to some somatic practices, it's so important. Because even though I speak to you right now and use words and vibration to communicate with you, what is far more important in this session is what do you sense on the level of the self as described by your somatic experience. And I want to, before we jump into meditation, I want to add one more concept. And that concept is related to something that I spoke about last time. And that's that default mode network. This is part of the brain, or the whole network of the brain, that is responsible for our safety, that engages during the time of daydreaming. When we're not attentive and not focused, your brain automatically starts picking up on the signals from the outside. And those signals are used to tell a story. So in a sense, scientifically speaking, the default mode network, the network in your brain responsible for daydreaming, on the outside is doing everything to create a story about the self. If you remember from last session, it's self-referential. It's very much concerned with who am I on the level of identity. It's not interested in the true north. It's interested in that magnetic north. How do I make sure that I'm aligned with that also changing compass needle that points towards the social norms, towards the social media, towards my socio-economical status, and my entire persona, as Carl Jung would say. It's all about having the story. And interesting what science teaches us, and this is a very important part of the understanding, that storytelling that happens unconsciously during the daydreaming, when the default network is engaged, is not interested in the factuality, how the story is accurate. Far more important for your brain is that story is continuously and unbroken and supports your current beliefs. This is by far the most important role of that diffused mode network of daydreaming, to make sure that there's a continuation of the story, and the story is not accurate, but it continues. It's congruent with the previous fact that is maybe true or maybe not. The truth of it is not important. The continuity of it is important. And that puts us on a path. And obviously, when you consider that very frequently lead us to those questions about the self, right? About the identity. Is my behavior right? Is my behavior right in front of other people? Is my role contributing to the society? It has nothing to do with who we are, unless we take time, according to Marcia, we take time to discover what lies underneath all these layers. So in neuroscience, they call it the narrative self. So narrative self is responsible to filling the blanks in our story. And that happens unconsciously, filling the blanks with whatever assures the continuity of the story. It's like the blind spot in front of your eye. It's a scientific fact that actually the way that the perception works, there is a blind spot right here in the middle of your perception. But your brain is phenomenal in filling up the blank. And even though your visual field contains that spot when you cannot see anything, the data, once processed in your brain, they say there's no blind spot. There's a continuity of your vision, of the field of vision. There's no just a dark spot in which there's nothing. So default mode network, in a sense, works in a very similar way. It tries to convince us that the story is more important than the facts. And that's where meditation and our practice comes very handy. Because ultimately, when I sit to meditation, I understand that what I am attempting to do, it's go beyond the narrative. Meditation is a tool, and any contemplative practice, whether it's a prayer or a mindful reading or mindful walking, takes us beyond the level of the narrative, beyond the level of the false story that we continuously engaging with in our daily life. And when you do that, you have much better chance of stumbling upon or finding the true north. Finding for yourself, not because I just said so, but finding for yourself as a heartfelt sense who you are on this more fundamental level above or beyond the narrative. Couple of comments. So I can understand why ego self needs the story to continue, because when it doesn't, it takes away the events of the story that already happened. The ego self feels threatened. That's precisely what happens. On the level of the personality, your default mode network, in a sense, is responsible for protecting that story. So thank you, Sue, for sharing that. This is exactly what happens. That's why when you trying to find your purpose or true north, using the metaphor of our session today, you might find yourself feeling uncomfortable because the identity that you create on a daily basis, even right now, wants to be protected. Again, it's not about factuality, it's about continuity. So that's why so many of us can withstand a level of suffering as long as we're doing our habitual thing. I don't want to do it, but it feels familiar. So we accept that level of suffering as long as the story continues, as long as our identity is not threatened. Identity, in my case, as a maybe meditation teacher. Me as someone who, I don't know, plays volleyball. My identity as, I don't know, as a partner. I'm a good partner. So as long as in my mind, for my mind, as this story is being continued, I feel at ease. But the second that this stops, the threat appears. And as we said in our previous story about You Are Always Enough, the nervous system becomes slightly shaken. You experience it as discomfort, maybe tension in your shoulders, as a tension in your throat, in your chest. But this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is the beauty of it. together here in Conscious Living Collective, I invite you to go towards the discomfort and recognize that that discomfort very often disappears or softens the moment you give it the attention, because that's the identity versus true self, the discrepancy between the needle of the compass pointing towards the true north and magnetic north. By the way, the true north and magnetic north are not that different. There's just that slight discrepancy, slight difference, the slight tension that you feel in your nervous system, that something is acceptable, but it's not fully me. Austin, both suffering and joy make us wholly human. Recognizing that both serve a purpose releases ego. This is it. And Austin knows that. I know for a fact that Austin knows that from the first-hand experience. This is the thing, ability to hold that tension that our ego personality or our identification with the persona holds versus our true self. And start finding the true north as an ultimate guiding system, and slowly releasing the magnetic north as the guidance, as your values, and dictating your decisions, dictating your behavior. What else do we have here? Yeah, there are many both scientists and philosophers talking about this very topic, because we want to know what is the meaning of life. We really want to know why we are here and who we are. So maybe before we jump into meditation, I want to bring a Viktor Frankl as an example here, a psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor who has written book Search for Meaning, Human Search for Meaning. I'm sorry if I get this title wrong. But in his book, he makes a point that fits the narrative of today's session. On the level, according to Frankl, on the level of the personality, if you think about the thinking mind, what we are searching is pleasure and power. And you can see that so clearly in the world today. The governments, the social media, they're searching for control, for giving, offering a pleasure in order to gain the power over you. But what Frankl talks about, we are actually on the level of the self, we are much more interested in meaning. That's why it is, okay, I'm going to find this title because this is important. Frankl's Search for Meaning. Man's Search for Meaning, the 1946 book by Viktor Frankl. That's what he discovered. And this is another thing that he points out towards. The meaning in your life is not found, is not something that you're being given, but that's something that you discover on your own and for yourself. And that's why that's contemplative practices, our meditation that we will follow up with in just a moment. It's meant to do. It's meant to go beyond that pleasure-seeking and suffering-avoiding personality and going underneath the narrative of the persona that you created as being created for you almost throughout your life, and see what happens on the level of the body. We are invited to do it because when we do it, the heartfelt sense or felt sense changes. It's not a thought, it's a sense. That's what changes. Your thinking does not change as a result of understanding more and me talking. Your thinking can only change when you switch from the operating according to the magnetic north and following that ever slightly vibrating needle to something that is always steady, always within you. Okay. CJ, well, this is very enlightening. In addition to meditation, what are other techniques to align? Meditation can take different form. Ultimately, the only one, not technique, but only one aspect of your life that can help you find your true north is awareness. And awareness, as we know, it's the fundamental aspect of your meditation. What you will find during the meditation is that actually when your mind wanders, you are not aware. You're falling for a default mode network that takes over and switches you to autopilot. So you bring yourself back into awareness. And awareness is not a technique. So thank you, CJ, for asking that question. Awareness is something that it's part of who you are. We are not here, again, to quit our job, to change our relationships, to radically change what we do. We are here to start doing all those things in awareness, not on autopilot. That's the only thing that changes. And as a result, your behavior adjusts when you're being aware because you clearly see. It's about seeing clearly. Where are you coming from? And when you see clearly, you simply no longer can do things in the same way. The example I can give you as you continue to discovering who you are, it's example of you being a toddler. There was a point in your life when you were crawling. You were on your fours, moving from one place to another, unconscious of the importance of that. But then you learn how to walk. And you discovered that you have enough strength, and walking on fours is optional. And how many of us decided to switch, being an adult, discovering that amazing ability as to walk on our 2 feet and commute this way, decided to drop back at your fours? No, because you discovered for yourself that this operational mode, is simply much better. So what I invite you to today is not in principle different to you start walking on your 2 feet as opposed to crawling on your fours. It's simply seeing for yourself, seeing clearly who are you? I want to come back to our initial question that stated, who am I when I strip everything I have been told to be? This is the only question that you have to ask yourself during this meditation, as opposed to what should I do with my life? Your life is already happening. Your life is already here. You have arrived. You don't need to worry about what you do with your life because you, quote unquote, doing it already. The more important question is to look underneath the what's being called the narrative self, according to psychology. Look beyond the story and see what you're going to find for yourself. So we need to remember who we truly are. Awareness, the silent observer. This is never moved by everything that happens on a green screen of a human experience. That's so beautifully put. And now I want to invite you to all of us together as a collective, you in the right place to explore and see for yourself how this concept of the true self resonates with you. Will you be able to catch a glimpse of that for yourself. And when you catch the glimpse, you will feel it. And I will use, some of you may be familiar with my meditation I created about boats that are passing in the canvas of our experience. I will use something similar today in order to help us to come to the place of resting. Come to the place where you be able to see for yourself the true north that is uniquely who you are. Diane, the overall body awareness throughout the day can help us to become more aware of where we feel most aligned or not aligned. That's exactly what we do today, Diane. Thank you so much. Hello, Seth. So once again, I will turn on the music. And please let me know if you can hear it. Please give me thumbs up if the music is still, you can hear it clearly. It is a very subtle one. Yeah, okay. Good, thank you. Thank you, Nick, Gwendolyn, Sandra, Anita, Tosca. All right. I will switch to my meditation screen because the attention or the focus right now is on you. We begin this meditation by acknowledging that you are the active ingredient. You are on the fundamental level the consciousness that experiences everything that happens for you and to you in this human incarnation. See for yourself, what is your consciousness connect with on the level of your bodily perception? Do you feel at ease? Do you feel comfortable? Perhaps your body sends you a message. There's a tension here. There's discomfort there. Perhaps I can adjust. Perhaps I can make things more aligned with who I am on the level of the physical body. At any point of this exploration, you may change, adjust, because it's not about simply sitting with your back straight, sitting in a certain position that according to someone, is good for meditation. It is finding out what works for you. Not because someone told you so, but because it feels right for you, your unique, wonderful self. And recognize that we all do it in the spirit of togetherness. We all are bound by the same intention of being here, coming towards the truer part of the self. And in that process of discovery, you may stumble upon obstacles. The defensive story of your mind will come to the surface and say, what are you doing here? You need to worry about the things that will happen in 1 hour, maybe tomorrow. Your mind will tell you that things that happened in the past determine your future. And when this happens, recognize this is a story. The story that is challenged by the state of your being right now in this very moment. It doesn't mean that this story is not important. It simply means that the story is not who you really are. You are observing the creation of the story from the perspective of the consciousness that you are on the fundamental level. So right now, imagine yourself sitting on the wonderful beach. Sitting with your legs crossed and observing the horizon. Tune in into the sound of the ocean surf. Gentle breeze. Feel the sun on your face. And perhaps at some point, on the horizon that you're watching, there will be a boat or a cruise ship that starts coming into your field of vision, into your perception. And you will see that there are many interesting things happening there. People, stories, activities. And you will want to jump on board and join the party, so to speak. And all of a sudden you are there. And then you recognize that you are still sitting on the beach. The conscious self, only briefly, engaged with this story that happens on that cruise ship. And then a moment later, the cruise ship disappears from your field of vision and it's gone. And what remains is you sitting on the beach, listening to the sound of the ocean surf that is always there, always steady, always with you. And you realize that you had a choice. You made the choice to observe that cruise ship. And then, once again, it may happen that another boat comes to your perception as you sit. And once again, you may find an urge to contribute to the activities on that boat. But this time, you let go. This time you choose to remain sitting on the sand, feeling its coolness, enjoying the breeze and the sound of the ocean surf. As the boat passes by, You are not the story. You are not the activity. You are the observer, sitting still and peaceful, simply watching what comes your way without the need of engaging every single time. And right now, I will give you space to explore on your own for a minute or two, observing that horizon of the human life that passes by, and see for yourself if you wish to engage or you wish to remain sitting still on the beach. It will be your choice, regardless of which I'll be here by your side, standing, holding the space, watching from the distance. And I'll bring you back when the time is up. And now it is time to shift your awareness and start observing your physical body. Recognize that a moment ago you may be sitting on the beach, and now you are a physical body connected with the space around you, feeling your sit bones, feeling your feet on the floor and hands in your lap. And by simply shifting the observer towards your senses, you engage differently with reality around you. Still being aware of who you are underneath the experience, being the consciousness that becomes the experience. And it is your choice how to engage with it, because you are indeed the active ingredient, always has been. So express your gratitude for giving yourself time to explore, going through this effort that help you to get to know yourself a bit better. The effort that allow you to go beyond the story and discover who you are underneath the narrative. And now, to conclude, simply take one deep breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And when ready in your own time, open your eyes and welcome back. Thank you so much for meditating with me. That was a wonderful experience. Thank you for allowing me to guide you through this visualization. And I'm curious to know if during that period of formal practice, your perspective switched, even also slightly. What happened to you? Carmela, Gwendolyn, Karen, thank you so much for your support. So this meditation was intended to point you out towards something that is more you. That was the intention of it. Whether he arrived there or not, that's a very personal thing. I'm sure some of you touched upon something new, and some of you may have stayed in a story. And both of stances are valid. This is the message that Conscious Living Collective delivers, that you can show up as opposed to the life around you, can show up as you are. Because you are always on the way. Regardless what happens to you right now on the physical and mental level, you are on the path. Otherwise, you would not be here. It may feel pleasant, may feel unpleasant, it may feel in 1,000 different ways. But it doesn't change the fact that you do exist as a consciousness continuously willing to explore and make the effort. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Sue. And as always, we will continue our exploration. Last week, we spoke about that you are always enough. Today, we try to catch a glimpse of the true north of who you really are under the level of the story. And next week, we will wrap up this 3-part session, 3-part series with living a life of meaning that you can see right here on your screen, and feel free to sign up for this event, or you can find it through my profile, whichever is better. And in this session, we will once again take a look and gaze at what it means to live a life of meaning, what Viktor Frankl invites us to do, what it means to go beyond the seeking for pleasure and seeking for power and align with something that is fundamentally more who we are, which is search for meaning. For those of you who are still here, I also want to express my gratitude for helping me in creating new course that was inspired, by the way, by the session 4 weeks ago called Healing the Anxious Heart, during which we addressed the human predicament that ultimately is full of fear and anxiety. And in the vein of we exploring in Conscious Living Collective, I wanted to give you a couple of pointers that will allow you not only to address the problem of anxiety, but most importantly, how to heal it. And healing of the anxiety comes through understanding. So this is the, where is it? Healing. There we go. I want to post here. The postcards allow me to share with you this. So if you struggle with understanding that low-level anxiety that always resides in the background of your being, this is the course in which I attempt to show a couple of tools and shed more light of what we experience as human beings. Anxiety not being something and search for purpose at the same time. It's not being something that is wrong or something you should be ashamed of, but something that is integral part of our experience as a human being, and normalize it also slightly. So thank you so much for today's session. As always, I appreciate your presence. It could not happen without you. And I look forward to seeing you next week and further explore our human predicament. I will leave you with Peter Helland and his wonderful music. I wish you a peaceful night or a wonderful evening wherever you are. See you next time.